Hey everyone, Cyrus here. This is my first video on the channel, so before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. Alright, let's start this off. S is best, F is worst, you know how this goes. We're gonna rank all of the skills for Punball for stage battles, starting off with the first one, Missile Ball. And easily S tier. Does more damage than even the other special balls, then sends off a missile to deal more damage to the weakest one. There's never a bad time to have Missile Ball. Next up we've got Super Entry. Does more damage, 300% for the first ball, which is normally not that great, but it's super useful with Black Hole Ball. Other than that, it's not great, but it's got its uses. So, B tier, low end. Next up we've got Drill Ball, which does damage, but doesn't combo well, and occasionally snags things, but doesn't do that much damage. D tier. It's not good, I would never pick it, but it's better than some of the worst ones. Next up, we've got Upgrade Freeze, turn 2 normal balls into freeze. The main reason you're taking freeze balls isn't for the damage though, so having 2 of them to freeze is pretty great. And the effect is brutal. That's an S tier. After that we've got Invincible Cover. This one's tough. It can save you from a lot of damage. Or it can do nothing for you if you're not really taking too much damage. Or it doesn't trigger on the right turn. I think it's A tier. You get a lot out of it for what it does. And it can really save you on some of the harder maps. Not quite S tier. Next up we've got Ice Master. Gives you more damage on your ice, but you're not really taking ice ones for the damage. I'll put it in C tier. It's helpful, but it's not something you go out of your way to grab. Looking at this, we probably won't need an E tier. Let's delete that for now. Next up we've got Horizontal Laser Upgrade. Lasers are underrated, pretty solid damage across the board, and horizontal is not quite good as vertical, but it's real close. Hitting the whole sideways row can really save you on some of the trickier walls. I think it's top end of B tier. Top end, there we go. HP up. Barely gives you any. You can maybe take one more hit with it, which would almost be F tier if it didn't occasionally come in handy if you're one hit away from dying. It has situational use, so I'll put it in D tier. Next up is Fireball, a good amount of extra damage and a burn effect, and all the balls are just a little bit better, given that they add even more damage than just an upgrade. I think it's a solid B tier. Well, high B, low A. We'll adjust it if we need to. The damage is solid, but you only ever can burn one, so you only ever really need 1 or 2. And Lightning. Chained to nearby enemies, dealing damage to both, more than the normal balls do. The only downside, it's not quite as predictable as the laser is. It does have a bit more versatility though. I think that's just enough to put it in A tier. After that is Fire Master. You are doing fire for the damage and the burn. I think it's pretty solid, but it requires a lot of fire and you really don't need too much fire. That brings us to Shadow Clone. This might be the only combo we put up in S tier. I think it's above freeze too. If you can get some balls stuck up top, every 30 it makes a new one. And it can clone special balls. It just really saves a lot of combos. That brings us to Horizontal Laser Ball, which briefly mentioned when we were talking about the upgrade. It's just a little bit better than the upgrade since it adds an extra ball. And clearing that whole row is pretty nice. Strength. This one's tough. If you get this early, it can more than, or at least almost, double your HP. And especially on those 60s. If you get the pet that lets you start with it, this is pretty high up there. Especially if you're fighting a lot of long-range damage dealing. But if you get it late, it's really just a waste of a skill. I think that alone drags it down to C tier, but I think it puts it just in between those. those two. Still really solid if you get it early. The situationalness just drags it down. And that's about how I feel for Black Hole Ball 2, our next one. It's really good if you want to crush through a wall. Really, really good if you've got the first with it. But outside of that, it just doesn't do much. I think it ekes out. I think walls are more commonly useful. I think it's just under Fire Master. Looking at the next one, Ice Combo. This one's a solid. Every 30 it does a little bit of damage, but it has a chance to freeze. And that freeze every 30 can really stop up big swarms. It's not quite as useful as dealing damage to all of them, so I'll put it in low B tier. And now Revive. I'm not sure where to rank this one. The buff it gives is huge, it literally saves you, and clears the bottom 3 rows. But once you use it, it's gone. And there's a good chance if it does activate, you're still going to be in a tight spot once it does. I think the buff alone, that second chance, especially around bosses, is enough to give it at least B tier. I think the one use, the fact that you can still get stonewalled pretty hard, doesn't let it go up to A. I think it's better than a Fireball, but not quite up there with Lightning yet. Controversial take. Sniper Wall, a mediocre amount of extra damage. D tier. It's good in the fact that you get an extra ball, but that's about all it is. And Combat Ball is just about the same. It's a little bit higher since damaging closer ones. It's probably a little bit more useful. If you're getting up top, you probably aren't in as much danger. Combo Bomb. Pretty low activation, solid amount of damage, a little bit of area. C tier. It's good, it's solid, nothing special, which is just about how the bomb is too. Since it's only one use, it explodes, damaging the nearby ones. It's good, it's alright. I think it works a little bit better as a combo move. Speaking of combos, Combo Laser. This is miles worse than the horizontal laser ball. This is just one-time damage when you hit a certain combo. And it's a cheap combo, but it's not a good one. D tier. Freeze Ball. Took us a while to get here. Right up here with the upgrade freezes. I'll put it a little bit better. Less chance for a buff activation, but you don't have to replace any of your old ones to sacrifice damage for it. That's really huge when bosses come out. And it can really save you if you've got someone right on the line that you just can't take yet. And moving on to Attack Up. This barely gives you any extra attack. You won't even notice you have it. This may be the worst one on here. F tier. Wish we had Super F tier. There's almost never a reason to take this, unless all three... No, even if there were all 3 options for Attack Plus, I don't think I would want to take it. I would ask for something else. Double Effect. Really low activation, and it only activates on combos. And most of the time those combos are just 30 damage, or 30k damage. It's really not worth it. It's somewhat decent if the only combo you have is Shadow Clone. That's not quite enough. That's F tier. Upgrade Fire. Not as good as adding an extra ball. But other than that, it's still pretty solid. Extra damage, a little bit extra chance to burn. But burn only activates once. Laser Master. One of the worst mastery ones. It just makes your horizontals and verticals do both. That's about it. It's decent. I would take it over anything in D tier. So I'll put it C tier for now. It might get bumped down later. Upgrade Missile. Missiles do more than any of the other special balls, plus they do extra damage to the weakest one. Having more of them is good. I think Shadow Clone is just a bit more useful. I'd be tempted to put Shadow Clone above Missile, but it's not quite there, especially with how many missiles you can get. Continuing on to the next one, we've got Fireball Combo, which is pretty solid as a combo. Hit about 40, start dropping fire, and this really gets the burn spread out nicely. Not quite as having more damaging balls, but it's still pretty solid. It's just about with the bomb. I could take one over the other on any day. Combo 10% off. Combos already aren't that great compared to taking balls, and 10% off is not that much for any of them. Especially for this to be decently useful, you have to have a real high combo, in which case you don't really need too much more. It's better than double effect, but only barely. Speaking of combos, Black Holes combo. It's a decent amount of damage, but super high activation. I think just on damage alone, it's better than the laser combo, but it's just so hard to activate. You don't get as many shots as you do with the others, and you don't get any additional effects with it, just straight damage. And Thunderbolt combo, a little cheaper, but the damage is much worse. And Vertical Laser, just barely better than the horizontal one, but that's about all it's got going for it. Void Missile. I take it most of the time when I see it and I have a black hole, so I want to rate it high. But it's really bad. It's okay if you've got Black Hole combo. You can summon missiles whenever it activates, kind of a 2-for-1. But then, it's less effective than the missile combo, which triggers more often. So unless you've really got a whole lot of black hole balls, this isn't worth it. It's probably F tier, as much as it hurts my heart. After that, Lightning Upgrade. More damage, more jumping, more better. And final ball, 300%. But instead of being able to stack with the first one, going Black Hole Ball and the first, to really mess up those walls, get in there, this one comes at the very end, and likely won't do too much for you. I think it's less useful than Void Missile if you've got the right Void Missile set up. Speaking of missile combo, the worst part of missiles, for as good as they are, the combo only shoots out a few. It's not really as helpful as just having a missile ball. It's a little better than Thunder, and it targets the weakest. That's all it's got going for it. Lightning damage. I think it's a little bit more useful than a little more ice damage. But lightning you're getting for the jumping, and more damage on that is nice, but it's not really predictable, which keeps it down a bit. Death Lightning is on the list twice, so we'll put them together. Death effects are bad. They don't do much, they don't activate often, and this one is one of the worst. F tier. Backstab Ball is tricky. The extra damage it does is nice, but only if you're hitting from behind, in which case you don't really want to kill that enemy that fast, most of the time. Better just chain your combos off them. I think D tier, because it can really be good against bosses. Just about there. It doesn't have much else going for it, and it can mess up your combos. And another death effect. It's bad. It's just bad. Worse than the combo, actually. And Death Laser. Also a bad death effect. Vertical Ball. I think this one is a little bit more useful than Horizontal. Horizontal, hitting the whole row is nice, but hitting the whole column is a lot more useful, a lot more often. I think it's better than upgrading. I think I might put it over Lightning. Lightning's a little bit less predictable. Yeah, that looks right. Moving on. Split Ball. Solid A tier. It's the not combo version of Shadow. You hit once and it splits, but the angles it hit really helps. And it's better to drill ball than just picking up stray boxes and balls. Anything on the map that's not an enemy. Solid. Normal ball attack up. This is bad. Almost as bad as attack. Does a little bit more, so it can stay for now. Insta-kill ball. Bottom tier. Terrible. Worst one in the game, by far. Okay, maybe it's not quite as bad as the attack ups, but it's the worst ball. It barely ever activates past the first few rounds. It looks like it's based off the number of HP, not the percentage, not the filled in length of the red bar, just the number. And once you start getting in high rounds where insta-kills could be useful, it barely ever works. And those few times it does, it's always right when you really need that monster to stay alive so your combo works. It just works against you way too much to be useful in a stage battle. And then, special ball attack up. I think with Black Hole Wall existing for getting rid of walls that are just blocking you out, it's just a little bit better than insta-kill ball, but it's still pretty bad. Combo up. I'm not a fan of this one, but it is very good. I don't normally take it, but adding 5 to your combo count every time a special ball hits can really help you chain your harder to hit combos, and if you've got Shadow Clone, it gets even better. I think this is good enough that it deserves a spot in C tier at least. A little bit behind strength. Probably better than a late strength, definitely. Not quite as good as having it from the start. Recovery up. This is what I take when all my other options are in F tier, and I never take it when anything C tier or higher. It's nice to have a little bit of extra recovery, especially if you're having a lot of enemies and a lot of long-range attacks, but it's never something I seek out. Burst Flame. A little bit worse than recovery. It's nice, a little bit of fire when a bomb hits. If you've got a bomb combo, that's decent. If you've got Bomb Ball, it's only going to activate once. Definitely not worth the perk slot. It's okay. I'd take it over the other ones. Probably take it over Void Missile. But I won't ever take it over anything better. Obviously. And last one, Missile Master. I was debating putting this in ARS while I was ranking the rest of these in my head. The buff is good. It's amazing, actually. If you have a few missile balls, you get one of them trapped up top. Just twice on every missile really clears the board of the weak ones, and then the strong ones, and it just keeps going. The only reason I put it in A tier is that you need missile balls for this to be good, and you need a few of them. It's not as good as having 2 missile balls if you just have 1 missile ball and Missile Master. But if you have any more than that, this gets real good real quick. I think it deserves a spot, at least an S tier, thinking about it. And the fact that if you have a lot of missile balls when you get this, you essentially just win the stage, I think that pushes it up over the upgrade at least. I don't think I can justify putting it over freezing, but I think I could be convinced on a good day or a good stage that Missile Master is better than almost anything else on here. Well, there it is, my rankings at least, for the stage battle skills for Punball. Let me know what you agree, disagree with, down in the comments. Tell me how horrible I did, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you liked. My goal is to one day be sponsored by the legendary Raid Shadow Legends, but not yet. Cyrus out.